Welcome
And
back.
we're back.
And we, as
One of
promised,
our favorite people, Julie Kornack. What's your title now, Julie?
Oh my gosh, you're always testing
it's
me.
a big deal.
Vice President of Government Relations.
Okay, great.
And that's for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
Yes.
Right.
It's a very big deal.
Right.
Whenever our brains hurt too hard about government things, we run to Julie and say, "Explain this to us," which is often for me. Maybe not as much for you, Nancy,
Yes,
but
it still is.
I'm always like, "Explain it to me,"
Right.
because I'm just not quite getting it. So we're going to start, Julie, with having you explain to us that something big is going on in New York State.
Yes, not just New York, but New York is one of the ones we've had our eye on for a while. We're very excited. So in 2014, July of 2014, so just a little over 5 years ago, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, which we call CMS, made an announcement that sort of clarified that they call it an informational bulletin directing states to cover autism treatment for their pediatric population. That means for everyone under 21. And so some states were, complied with that more quickly than others. And CMS doesn't, they understand that it's a big thing to shift into, and they allow the states to have some time to do it. And two of the states that were really slow to comply, that are very populous, are New York and Texas. And now this year, both have complied at the same time. So it's sort of like this, amazing momentum that we're feeling.
It's a watershed moment.
It's a watershed moment because honestly, this has just been a focus because we know that we're talking about millions of children when we're talking about those two states. And so Texas is rolling out its benefit no earlier than September, so I think we can expect something closer to January. And then also the same target is for New York, that in January of 2020, people who have Medicaid will be able to access autism treatment benefits.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Big
very
deal.
big deal.
It's a very,
How
very
many
big
states
deal.
have it now?
It's a great question. So people will sort of disagree about that because some states will have sort of added the benefit without creating the infrastructure for the benefit to work. Ohio is a state like that. So it doesn't mean, so if you were a persistent parent, you would probably be able to get the benefit, but it wouldn't happen very easily and you wouldn't be able to find your provider network and you would just have to really push hard on your Medicaid folks. And so I'd say about a little over 30 states offer the benefit now. And then there are going to be people who will say it's closer to 40 states, but I'm not counting the ones that don't function.
Okay.
So, but I expect New York, they're doing a really good job reaching out to the community and trying to make sure that they understand everything they need to be able to roll out the benefit in a way where it will function well. And Texas is doing the same thing. Oklahoma just started offering the benefit July 1st, so we'll see how that goes. New Hampshire just fixed its benefit, so it's working better. Just a lot of good news.
You're having a good year,
I
Julie.
feel, if I could take credit for all of this, it would just be,
Well, and I think there's some confusion because
Yes.
a lot of us go by the mandate. We hear the mandate. Now, I'm not sure that everybody knows what the mandate is, but we say that a lot. Well, the
Right.
mandate. And now, as of a couple of weeks ago, we have the mandate in all 50 states. Tennessee was the last
we
to
do.
topple.
100%,
100%.
as of last week. And so the mandates are essentially, in most states, they're bills that were passed because of this amazing autism community that really generated the political will for people to get something done. And so state by state, led by Laura Unum when she was at Autism Speaks, and state by state, they passed these autism mandates. And then recently what's happened, which is kind of exciting for me, is that instead of having to pass a specific bill to say that these kids should access coverage, they say that the mental health parity law says you have to give them coverage.
Yeah.
So in Tennessee, there's just clarification from the insurance commissioner saying, by the way, it's clear from mental health parity that these kids get to access autism treatment. So that's one of those things where I like that because the more we can strengthen the mental health parity law and make sure that the insurance commissioners, the state regulators understand what it means, the more all of the autism mandates that we did pass will be enforced by those regulators.
And we're gonna talk about the mental health parity in just a second, but let's cycle back because we've got new viewers who are watching us on BronxNet TV, and so I'm sure that they're going to want to know, what does this new thing in New York mean specifically for them? What should they be doing?
Okay.
How should they be preparing? How can they access this care?
This is such a great question. I would say, first of all, that if they are parents of a child who's already diagnosed with autism, the first thing that they want to do, if they haven't done this already, is apply to see if they're eligible for Medicaid.
Okay.
And that they'll be, nobody should assume that they're not eligible. Every state has different eligibility limits. New York's is pretty generous, and they should, so if they don't have any coverage for autism treatment, or if they do have some coverage, but they have high cost sharing, like their copays are really high and that kind of thing, then I would absolutely encourage these families to go to Medicaid to apply to see if their child is eligible for Medicaid. In some states, you have to be rejected as not eligible based on your income to then apply based on your child's disability.
Okay.
So if you get rejected, don't take no for an answer.
Okay.
Go back. And these can be complicated processes, and you might be dealing with somebody who's new or doesn't have all the information.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that right now. My child qualifies under his disability,
Yeah.
but they're sending me information asking all this financial background from me.
That's exactly what happens, and
Right.
it's very confusing to the parents. So you just have to really kind of push forward, there's also ways to determine whether you should be eligible and whether they're making a mistake if they say you're not eligible. But it gets complicated, and really the easiest way is just to kind of go to Medicaid, apply, and get into that process that you're stuck in right now,
Right.
where you get to argue with somebody until you get
Exactly.
your benefit.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, so, and when all else fails, apply under the financial thing, give them your financial
Yep.
information, get that denial, then come back to them and say, now we want to apply under disability, and go
Right.
through that process. Now, that could take a little bit of time.
It could,
That's
yeah.
not going to be a weekend.
Right.
People should get started.
Yeah. Because so you were saying September they will start with this benefit, but really
No, they'll
roll
start
out
in
will
New
be
York.
January.
They'll start in January.
Okay, January.
And the other thing is, if your child's been diagnosed at school but hasn't been diagnosed by someone who's not a school psychologist, Medicaid might not accept that diagnosis.
Okay.
So those are the kinds of things you can be exploring now to make sure that you have a diagnosis that they'll accept, or to go get the diagnosis through that they'll accept.
Okay, so you've got some legwork to do to be ready on January 1
Yes.
to be able to access this
Right.
benefit. If you have to, go find the place where you can get that assessment
Yes.
so that you got your paperwork all in a row.
Right.
And I love, one of the things that Autism Speaks used to give was a whole directive about how to take care of your paperwork. And how, get a low-cost scanner, get your paperwork, scan it in, keep it all in one file on your computer,
Yeah.
and label everything as you go. Get started with that because you're going to need these papers again
Sure.
and again and again and again, and you don't want to have to go looking for them. I can remember
That's
me doing the
good
mad
advice.
dash, going through piles of paper, going, where is the one piece of
Right.
paper that I
I
need?
know, that's
You
me.
can drown and get the scanner.
And that can also kind of dissuade you from getting it done that day, and
Right.
before you know, months have gone by. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I-
The other thing you can do is you can reach out to providers who are in your area to make sure they know that you're interested in getting services if they decide to accept the Medicaid benefit. Because we
Okay.
don't know which providers will accept the Medicaid benefit yet. We don't know how long it will take them to contract with Medicaid, all those kinds of things. So start exploring the providers who are local to you to see, if they have a long waiting list, if they know about the Medicaid benefit coming, if they're interested, if they think they're going to be accepting it. They may not know all of those things, but you can probably get on a list where they'll reach out to you once it rolls out.
And there's nothing like getting on the list as early as possible,
Getting on the
letting
list.
people know that you're interested, go tour the facility, get a feel for, how your life would work when you get this fabulous
Yeah.
opportunity.
Exactly.
And I will say too, that CARD is in a lot of places in New York. So definitely you can go to centerforautism.com and go to the locations tab, see where the closest office is next to you. Obviously, Julie is giving you this information, and she is the person that is doing this for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So check it out. That's where my kid was treated. That's where your kid was treated. So
It's still being treated.
and there you go.
Right.
So check it out. So now let's shift a little bit, because there's this other piece that everybody needs to know. We've already seen several families that have been at that point where they're like, okay, I can't get any more services. And for various and sundry reasons. One case in particular that I'm thinking of, that the mom got to me and was crying and said, well, we've been denied by our insurance company because my child is 10. And I was like, what do you mean you've been denied by your, well, they sent us a thing and said he no longer, because in our state, once they reach 10, they aren't eligible for benefits anymore. And I said, I don't know, but I think that's illegal. Let me get
Good
Julie
instinct.
Kornack on this and ask her, and that family, that the hope, just the hope before they got everything done of, oh, you mean maybe we could continue with therapy, was life-changing. And share with everybody what you were able to share with all of us about this one particular thing that's saving everybody's bacon.
Well, there's a lot of laws that protect patient rights to access autism treatment and other mental health services. My favorite law, and I always say it's my favorite law.
Where's your pin?
I know, I should have worn the pin. I feel terrible. It's in my purse. I'm not being very organized. But my favorite law, if you don't have a favorite law, this should be your favorite law, is the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. And that's a federal law that kind of puts into the law all the instincts that you have every day that this doesn't sound right, is that legal? So what mental health parity says is that the restrictions on the limits on mental health services, and autism treatment is considered a mental health service, that those limits can be no more restrictive than they are for other medical surgical services in the same category, and those categories would be like outpatient services, not something like physical therapy. So in the old days we would have somebody say, well, we limit physical therapy so we can limit autism treatment. I was like, no, that's not how it works. And because of the essential health benefits from the Affordable Care Act, where you can't impose limits on those, then really any limit that you see on mental health services would not meet the test of being a limit that's not more restrictive than limits imposed on medical surgical services. So that mental health parity law breaks down into quantitative treatment limits, which is pretty much anything with a number, like the child's age, the number of hours, how long the child's been getting services, how many visits a week, that kind of thing. And then the other one is non-quantitative treatment limits, which are a little bit more nuanced and really speak to all the instincts parents have out there when they run into strange hurdles, which would be sort of burdensome authorization processes, treatment plan templates that providers don't want to use because they're so complicated and they take so much time. Anything that requires additional testing or is a location exclusion, all of those things aren't permitted because of the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. And that applies across the board to the self-funded plans, which is great because we know we run into a lot of problems with the self-funded plans, and it applies to the large group and to individual plans, and then indirectly to small group because of the Affordable Care Act. So it's a very powerful law, and we use it a lot. And that's why I was saying that when Tennessee said, you know what, we don't even need to pass a mandate. The mental health parity law tells us that we have to provide this benefit. I was so excited because the more we can see state regulators do that sort of thing, the more we can just point the next state regulator who's confused to that state regulator over there, and then, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. And you know, it really is something where we're getting momentum.
So you normally have a pin. Tell them what the pin says.
The pin says Got MAPIA. MAPIA is what we call Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act. And I have it on a sticker on my phone. I have a little lapel pin. And I give them out at conferences because when people see that, they all ask, what's MAPIA? And I'll tell them.
And Julie genuinely gets excited about it. And then one of the reasons why we wanted her on to talk about it is that I think the rest of us go, well, that's nice, but it has so many ramifications.
Yes.
And sometimes you guys will write into us or you'll call us and you'll say, well, I need this. And a lot of times what you really need is that MAPIA.
Yep.
Because it's the muscle that has you covered.
It is.
So for the person who says, okay, my insurance company is saying that they're not going to give my child this many hours because they're 10, or they're not going to give us any hours because they're 10, and in our state mandate, it says they will only give this amount up to this age, that and they go, there's a state law, Shannon, there's nothing, I can't do anything about it.
Right.
But you've explained to me before that because MAPIA is a federal law, it wins.
Well, so this is such an important point that you're bringing up, because a lot of the mandates were written with a pressure from the insurance lobbies to, not pass the mandates.
Right.
And so when they were written, compromises were made. And so Hawaii is a great example where the insurance industry said it would cost them $1 billion a year to cover autism. And we all know that's not true. And thankfully, Autism Speaks has done a lot of actuarial studies to show that it really is just a few cents every month on people's premiums to cover autism treatment. Wow. And so when they were under the pressure trying to pass the mandate, a lot of legislators asked for limits to be able to sort of assuage the concerns of the insurance carriers who were threatening to leave the state and that kind of thing. And so a lot of these state mandates will have hour limits or age limits or even monetary limits.
Yeah.
And they all violate the mental health parity law. You can't have a state law that violates a federal law. And most of the really good news is that most of the time, the health plan that you have knows it needs to ignore those limits because they're very used to the fact that they don't get to have those.
But it's incumbent upon us to understand that, because the insurance company is not going to call you up and go, by the way,
Yes.
this thing that we're doing, if push comes to shove and you say
You're
something,
right.
we really can't do that. And a lot of times when we call the first person at the insurance company,
Yes.
that's that first level person that you've called the number and you've gone through the decision tree to get to that person on the phone, often that person is not the best informed person working for the company.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I think that a lot of those people are, new to the company, not trained specifically in the autism mandate and that sort of thing, or they don't understand mental health parity. That's going to take us some time.
Yeah.
So it's important for parents to be empowered with the knowledge that any kind of a limit that they hear that just is not individualized to their child, that it's just like the law says that we don't have to treat you after this age, or our policy says that you only get 4 years, anything like that violates the mental health parity law.
Wow. We could spend hours talking with you, Julie. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But
I think it simplified it, though, for our viewers.
Yes.
I hope so.
Here.
And if you have questions, who should they go to?
Well, anybody can email me at j.kornack@centerforautism.com. I'm happy to. I think that my email is even on our website under policy resources, but. And you can
I
put it
hope
on,
you don't get inundated.
I'm happy for that.
Okay,
I really,
that's
because
awesome.
I do think we all need to be on the same page. And I just want to close with every year I go as a member of the National Coalition for Access to Autism Services. It's a provider consortium in Washington, D.C., and we go and we lobby and to make people aware of mental health parity. And this is the first year that I didn't have to explain what mental health parity was to any of the staffers that we talk to, of any of the senators, any of the congressmen, congresswomen. Everybody knows what mental health parity is, and they're all very supportive of it. It's not a divisive issue.
Well, that's got to feel
Very
good for you, because I know you've been working hard to get to
Yes.
that tipping point. Isn't it nice to know that there's people like Julie Kornack in your corner that
Yes.
are working these kinds of things
Yes.
while you're sleeping? She's pushing and finding out the information about what's already there, but pushing for these things. And I hope protecting. I'm worried about the mental health parity, in terms of if something happens and you feel like it's in jeopardy, you will tell us and
We
we'll
will let you
mobilize,
know.
right?
We're making sure
Okay.
it's in all the new proposals that come out and all
Okay,
that.
great.
Yeah.
Great, Julie.
Thank you so much for being
for
with
your
us.
activism.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay.
It's a thrill. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.